Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep that for Christmas.
Keeps away, drop your biscuit or something.
Gotta pre-silence myself. I'm sorry. I'll forget. It's now 7 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the City Council regular meeting for January 3rd. If I can have everybody please silence their cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. I always try to butcher your name. Hogan?
Hogan.
Hogan. Can we take the roll?
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Holland.
Present.
Councilmember Dowdy.
And Councilmember Rowland has, are we discussing that right now, or? Because she's not here, so.
Sure. So Councilmember Rowland has submitted her resignation as of December 31st. I thought when we were in workshop talking about council rules, we can talk about the process of filling that vacancy.
Okay, so we do not have to excuse Councilmember Rowland because she has resigned.
Correct.
It's always been four. It's always been 4 or 6 of us.
So we'll move on to citizen communications for items not on the agenda. I have one person that is signed in. I don't know if there's anybody on the call right now, but Ms. Lovejoy, if you would like to come up.
Thank you. Jana Lovejoy, 226 Davidson, Woodland. I just have a couple comments, actually questions, regarding our business license renewal. It seems that at least some of the renewal notices are not out yet, and I was just curious. I thought that they're due, the payments due January 31, and I was just curious if anyone knows the status.
Pete, would you like to answer?
Sure. So the state is handling the business licenses now. I don't know exactly when the renewals will go out. I will contact them and let Ms. Lovejoy know.
Thank you.
And I'll let City Council as a whole know also.
And secondly, regarding, is there a planning commission vacancy still? Does anyone know?
That was filled at the last meeting.
It was already filled, okay. And the last item, I noticed in the budget, there was $5,000 allotted for canine. Does anyone know what that is for? Is that for a?
Chief, would you like to answer that question?
I'm not aware of that budget. Was there $5,000 in that budget? I don't recall that.
I would have to take a look. I thought there was some expenditure in there for the care of the animal. We do take donations, but we still have to show the.
Is it a holding spot?
And we just received a grant from the Criminal Justice Training Commission on that. So that might be the figure that's in there.
Is that for a police dog? I mean,
It's our wellness animal, Ms. Lovejoy.
all right, thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
You keep watching. I want to hear it's about.
Hey, Mr. Dunn, thank you. Ms. Lovejoy, does Pete have your contact info to be able to get info to you? Okay,
I do.
thank you. All right, Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to have citizens communications for items not on the agenda or is online with us at the moment? Mr. Deinhardt, I see that
Non-agenda items?
non-agenda items. That is correct.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question, I guess. Mr.
Okay.
Reinhardt here.
You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't need 5 minutes. So, I still, so my water bill came with mistakes on it this month. I mean, I'm now getting credits that I don't know what they are. Will I take them? Absolutely. Do I have neighbors now who are not even being charged for sewer? Absolutely. So we still have errors going on here. So again, I'm going to ask, why are we not doing a full audit? And then in terms to the budget and things, I guess I would like to understand and maybe ask why this hasn't been done. Could someone explain to me or tell me what is the difference between actual revenues received versus what were projected revenues when the study was done? Obviously, we have more residents probably than the study. The water usage, obviously, levels are different. They're not going to be exactly the same. Chemical usage, projects are different. So if someone could just tell us, what is the difference of the projected revenues with that study and what are our actual revenues? Are we ahead or behind? If we're behind, okay, then obviously we're going to have to jack rates up again. If we're ahead, let's try and figure out how to lower rates. Am I on mute?
No, you're good. We heard you. I was waiting for one of the city staff that might have a response for you here, or Mayor Finn.
I don't
No.
have a, go ahead.
So we'll have to take a look at that to show where we are at the end of 2022. We haven't closed the year yet, but we can take a look at that and let City Council know.
Okay. Mr. Deinhardt,
I would also like to note. Are you there, Monty?
yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
So I'd also like to note too that there's been some changes now after council met and workshop with the delay of rates. So that all still needs to be calculated as well. And that delay, I believe, if my memory serves me right, is through May now.
For water.
For water.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed, Mayor. I mean, if it was 30,000, whatever it is, but it would just be interesting to know. I mean, because we keep pointing back to this, study, but what are we actually at compared to that study, whether it's favorable or unfavorable? So that's what I got. And thank you.
Okay, and I'm assuming that we have your contact info where they can get you some info when they do get that info to you, Mr. Deinhardt?
I do have
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
I have it.
Yeah, Pete's great to work with.
Okay, thank you for your time. Is there anybody else in the audience or online that would like to make citizen communication for items not on the agenda? Okay.
Are we still on, not on the agenda? Is that what
We're on items not on the agenda at the moment.
Right.
Is that good? Okay.
I think so. I just wanted to let you all know, if you hadn't heard, that Cowlitz County Commissioners have rescinded that there is a housing crisis in Cowlitz County. So I know a lot of the things that are going to be put before you have been based on the fact of a housing crisis. So anyway, that's just something to know.
Hey, can you state your name for me one more time, just online, or I mean for everybody?
Donna Butler.
Donna Butler. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else for citizen communications for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to citizens communications for items on the agenda tonight. If anybody has any comments.
Jennifer Ray Keene with the Port of Woodland, Executive Director. On the agenda, you have a workshop item regarding the public involvement plan for the comprehensive plan. And just like to note that in reviewing the stakeholder list, you forgot a couple of taxing districts, including the Port of Woodland as a stakeholder, as well as the school district and the Dyking district. So you may want to reach out to all of us as part of this comp plan. That's all. Thanks.
Did you take note of those, Mr. Boyce?
Got it.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to shuffle a lot here. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to have citizen communications for items on the agenda tonight or online? Anybody? Seeing none, we will move on to...
Move to approve the agenda.
I didn't even say it.
He's trying to be helpful.
I gotta work tonight.
All right. Motion by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Ms. Hogan, can we take the roll?
Councilmember Dowdy?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Burke?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to reports of City Council. Anybody have anything they would like to report on tonight?
I
Oh,
can.
sorry.
I'm a pick-me. So after closing for 2 weeks for the holidays, the Woodland Action thrift store reopened today. There's a new layout so that folks with mobility issues should be able to get around the store 1,000 times better than the way it was. And the food bank reopens this Saturday at 11 in the morning for food distribution. So we've been closed for a couple weeks, so that's all.
All right. Thank you.
One thing I'll mention is the chamber is meeting every Tuesday now at the Oak Tree also. They were meeting twice a month, but they've gone back to every Tuesday meeting. So. Starting Tuesday. Legislative phone call starts Tuesday morning.
Okay. The Oak Tree, is that what you said? Did they
No,
meet?
not they're meeting at the Oak Tree every Tuesday. But the legislative phone call, you can either call in or you can go to Darlene's office.
Okay.
So she'll call in, so, at Woodland Truck Line.
Any more council updates? Seeing none, we will move on to reports of standing committees. Public safety.
We met at, actually, the chief and I met at 5:30 tonight. We were the only ones present. We had no new business to discuss. And the police department, Chief Kelly provided a brief department update. He reminded the committee of Officer Murray's retirement, leaving the department with one vacancy. The department continues to look for qualified candidates to fill the final position. The chief will provide updates on candidates once the information is received from City Hall. The department has one officer in the academy, and he is doing well, and one officer in week 4 of the department's field training program. Student Officer Thompson is doing well and progressing as expected. The chief wants to thank the City Council for passing the 23 budget. Police department budget will be moving forward with the equipment purchase authorized by the council. And no business, and we adjourned at 6 p.m. and the next meeting will be February the 6th at 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Move on to Public Works, which would be me. We met tonight at 5:30. So I was a little late here and was listening in over the phone, so bear with me. I'm going to try to thumb through this here. Fortunately, Ms. Coleman made me a kind of Nice little cheat sheet here. So utility billing, we have found some of the complaints are unwarranted in the addition to Mine All following the municipal code for the billing. We are finding the more transparent we are, the more questions arise. The key is we are resolving and working toward accuracy and transparency. So they are working through it. If you are having issues, please bring it to Public Works Department so that they can try to figure out exactly what's going on. Filter restoration project, phase 2. We have taken phase 2, filter number 2 restoration out of the budget. We are reaching out for bonding, DOA, DOH, or USDA funding alternatives to move forward in the water projects. The Rainy well pumps experienced a power surge at the beginning of August. It was determined that the variable frequency drives are beginning to fail and are obsolete. A new VFD was ordered for emergency replacement. The new VFD has been installed and it is working as it should, and 2 additional VFDs were ordered with a lead time for sometime in September of 2023. Working at the airport and doing maintenance there. The VFDs are in very short supply, and even us at the airport, there are some VFDs we're having a lead time of 55 weeks to replace. It is getting lucky to repair equipment at this point with the equipment that's on the shelves. Received an email with fuel contaminating the groundwater from a fuel spill from the DOH. Can you explain the DOH? Department of Health. Water lines on Bozarth near fuel processors cleanup site. Took samples around the site to make sure nothing has infiltrated the water system to be proactive. Upon review, there was no contaminants found. Water leaks due to setters and pipe failure. Copper service on North Gorig. Is that Garrig? I think it's Garrig, isn't it? Repaired. Service on Sherman repaired. Replaced leaking resetter on Dale. Resetters on CC and Beechwood, Inzel, and Pacific. I'm butchering this. I apologize, everybody. Hydrant testing. Section 3, testing and flushing started and is up again to start mid-January. So if you see us outflowing the hydrants, you will know what is going on. New water line installation across Garrig, down Lakeshore to Public Works Shop, starts 9/12 and should finish by December. This is now complete, I guess. What you will see at this point is the grind and overlay and the 10-foot bike pedestrian path to be completed by mid-March. Part of the problem with that is the batch plant for doing asphalt is no longer open and running. So it's going to cause delays on that project. Lift stations. Vacked out LS3, lift station 3, 6, and 14. 12 of the 14 control panels have weather covers installed. And sounds like we removed a tablespoon from one of the pumps at lift station 10 and vacked out lift stations 3, 6, and 9. It's insane the amount of stuff that gets sucked into those pumps and how much work it creates. Yeah. And it takes somebody actually physically removing it by hand. It's not a fun process. Large grease plug on Millard Street during cleanup. Troubleshooting found damaged sewer main. Pipe was too deep for Public Works to repair. Contracted with Tappaney for emergency repair. 4 days after repair, business on Millard attempted to clean out their service line and dislodged copious amounts of grease and raw sewage that backed up sewer main used by several commercial businesses. Unknown amount of raw sewage overflowed into business's parking lot company representatives were very uncooperative and hostile, ended with Public Works staff kicked off the property. During lakeshore construction, we found 12-inch cement casing that goes under freeway to the sewer plant. Can you elaborate on that? Is that
Yeah. So basically, we were missing, there's a casing that goes underneath I-5 that goes from Lakeshore Avenue over to our sewer plant. And as we know right now, our lift station number 3 and lift station 4 takes the majority of the bulk of the sewage flow into the plant. And that goes back around underneath exit 21, down the road that goes to the sewer plant over by the Arco station. So what we want to do is we have development and such that's going over on the south side of town. So that would allow us to possibly put in some type of a lift station to feed it underneath the freeway and take some of the load off lift station 3 and lift station 4. So we were able to find that when we were doing this construction on Lakeshore Drive. So
Nice.
that gives us future potential expansion to be able to get sewer into the sewer plant.
for less money? I'm
Right,
assuming
because
for
yeah,
future.
because we don't have to go underneath Interstate 5
Yeah.
or pull up the existing lines that are, 15 feet in the ground.
Okay. And I apologize, we have missed a few of the Public Works meetings, so I am going over a lot of information from tonight. So wastewater treatment plant, booster pump for the screening systems are online. Two-inch service line installed at wastewater treatment plant. Pressure and cross-connection issues are resolved. Water line and backflow device installed 8/11/2022. Am I supposed to do just the highlighted yellow? Is that what you're going for? Or highlighted and underlined? Okay. Preliminary cost estimate has been prepared by Gibbs and Olson for, is this for the biosolids?
Biosolids. I love that word.
Oh, sidewalk for City Alley on 3rd and McKenzie has been repaired. Torch down, done for the year. And these are the last couple months, so these were done months ago, but we're just going over what we talked about in the meeting tonight. Received a $96K grant. $96,000 in grant dollars from TIB to replace the final high pressure sodium lights around town. I think, would you say there's about 300 that were getting done?
300, yeah, so about 148 that are on, about 148 that are on utility poles that are owned by Kellett's PUD, but they're lights that we pay for. And then there's about 145 that are on our poles that we own and maintain. So together it's about 300 lights. That grant will allow us to change out all the remaining high pressure sodium lights in town. Will be 100% LED and will save us just for these last 300 about $2,000 a month in bills. So about
Nice.
$24,000 a year, not to mention the ones that we've already changed out. So the whole city will be LED.
And that lowers our power consumption about 50% is what you were saying?
56%.
Yeah.
Yeah, for just those 300, not including the other 100 plus that had been done previously, 150 plus.
25-mile-an-hour sign installed on South Pekin, just past Windflower. Cars are going very fast as they leave the city limits. Police station, new exterior paint. Looks really good. I don't know who painted it, but they did a good job.
Public Works employees.
Public Works did. Thanks. Community center, repaired the damaged stair railings out the back door. Horseshoe Lake, new Kubota riding mower, and a small push mower has arrived. Much better cut at the park, which freed up the old mower to be used for the street department, which greatly reduced mowing time at the other city properties. Gorig Park, grader over.
We regraded.
So I think that was the county who did that for us, or we did that?
Yeah, we did it.
We did it? Okay. I apologize. Oh. Winterization. We winterized all irrigation lines. Downtown, flower baskets removed, decorative lights on trees have been cleaned up. Planter pots updated. We had a couple new hires for Public Works Department. One started November 17th. One of them was a laborer that was hired to full time. I don't know if I'm stating names or not, but I'll leave that out.
I think you can choose public.
Okay. Frank Pulowski is a summer helper. He was hired on full time. Krista Johnson will be starting November 17th. Obviously, this is a little bit old. And she is starting in the Public Works office. 2 city employees have upgraded their CDLs to Class A. That is not an easy process. With Washington State now, I have a CDL, and they've made it a lot harder. Make a Different Day had about... What's that? Yeah. Make a Difference Day was October 26th, October 22nd. We had about 60 volunteers to help out from citizens around the city. I was personally involved in that, and it was a really good experience, and I'm glad it's back this year. It was sad to not have it the last couple of years. Recreation and Conservation Office RCO grant. We ranked 17 out of 34, which did not put us in the running to get any of this grant money for Scott Hill Park. 17 submitted to the DOH grant, financial funding for waste treatment plant projects.
DOH is for water treatment plant.
Sorry, water treatment. Submitted the ECY grant
Department of Ecology.
for financial funding for the wastewater treatment plant biosolids tank.
Yep.
We submitted for the USDA for the water treatment plant projects. Grant and financial funding, low interest rate. It's in underwriting, working on biosolid tank application. And I am done. I apologize, everybody.
Good job.
I don't think we'll do one. I think it's just on. We're not doing a public hearing. It's just on the list. We're just not doing one, right?
There is no
Yeah.
public
Want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Hey, Mayor, can we mute you?
Yeah, Mr. Boyce attended the COG meeting for me, so I think it was just for voting purposes, not for anything. Mr. Boyce, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, they were just finalizing their budget. It was a very short meeting. It was approved.
Gotcha. Thank you. As we go into January, those usually happen towards the end of January, so I should have something, I believe, at the next meeting going into 2023.
We're working on reports of advisory committees. I didn't get there yet. You jumped ahead.
Oh, you looked at me. I thought it was time.
No. I got nowhere else to look. Forward. That's my option. So that was the Cowlitz Wahkiakum Council of Governments, AWC legislation. I don't know if we have anybody updating that or not. No. And downtown.
We'll be
Woodland.
discussing that. We'll be discussing that at the next meeting. They're asking that as we go to our city action days in February, that we support their legislative action. So I'll get that out to council for consideration. We'll discuss that at the next meeting if that's something we want to do.
Okay. Downtown Woodland revitalization.
We
Director
don't have a
Coleman?
meeting. I'm meeting with Loda, who is our secretary, and our VP this month, and we'll set up our next meeting time, and then we'll put it on the website.
Okay.
It's on the DWR website.
On the DWR
Yeah.
website? Okay. For the next meeting time, still is needing to be set up, is that what you're saying? Okay. Reports of city officers. Mayor.
Yeah, you looked at me again, so I just want to make sure we're good to go.
I actually said mayor this time.
I know, thank you. I don't have a whole lot. I'm sorry I'm not there this evening. I don't want to spread whatever it is that we're spreading through the Finn household. I held it off as long as I could. I'm the last one to get it, so it's very exciting to be ill. So I'm sorry I'm not there with you this evening. We were going to discuss committee assignments this evening, but we'll discuss that at the next meeting. I'll get something out. That's something that changes annually, just to give council an opportunity to learn the different disciplines throughout the city, from public safety to public works and finances and so on, and human resources. So we'll discuss at the next meeting and get those assigned for 2023. The fact that Ms. Rowland has now resigned, anything that she was on, the new person that council selects to replace her will just slide into that for 2023 as well, when that occurs. And Mr. Boyce, are we discussing that, what's the timeline on that? I know that we've got an ad going out.
Right, so I was hoping to discuss a little bit with council during the workshop tonight about the process, because it is in the council rules. But in general, basically we advertise, we're getting that ad together right now. We look for applications. You have to be a registered voter who lives within the city limits. Council gets all the applications, does interviews, asks, we come up with questions that city council is okay with. We have them fill out a form, the same form we use for other committees. City council can change that if you so like. At that meeting, we do the interviews. Usually council goes into executive session to discuss qualifications of the applicants. And then in open session, you take nominations and vote on those nominations.
Awesome. Thank you. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of been out. So happy holidays, and I'm glad to see that everyone's back. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Boyce.
Okay. Actually, I was going to talk about filling the vacancy, so that's done. I wanted to make sure everyone realizes the next city council meeting's on Tuesday the 17th again, because of the holiday. And just want to make sure everyone's got that. And I understand the planning commission meeting for January 19th is canceled. Is that correct? And with that, I'll leave it for the workshop for the rest of the discussion.
Okay. And seeing as nobody else is on here to have an update, I will move on. Oh, Public Works. Do you have a report, or you good with what I did?
Yes.
You sure?
Thank you.
Because that was brutal.
You did a great job.
We'll move on to consent items.
Move to approve the consent items.
Second.
Motioned by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. So again, we take the roll.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have no action items tonight, so we will move on to the workshop. And workshop on council rules. Do I need to, what do we need to do to go
I can
into?
give a little summary at the beginning. So
Can I mute you, Mayor?
I'll let Pete start, and I'll give my 2 cents.
Okay.
So we had requests from City Council to look at a couple provisions in the council rules. 1.3, attendance excused absences. And I've had requests about 1.8, telephonic appearance by council members. Usually we talk about this during the council retreat, but there seemed to be a lot of interest. That's why we brought it to this meeting. If there are other provisions in the council rules you want to discuss, we sure can, including filling vacancies on city council. We're open to that. So really this is more of a city council discussion to find out what you want and what you need in the council rules. Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
I do. Excuse me, I do. At the last council retreat, we discussed video appearances being added into the council rules, and I know that that's something that has come up through the conversations over the last few months. I understand council's concern with potential abuse of that and just not showing up to a meeting and showing up telephonically or through video. However, I think it's important to note that if we're going to provide this service to our community, which I think is, excuse me, is a valuable service, which is, I'm here tonight because of it. I don't think that we should be excluding council members from attending this way. Now, if it's the only way they're attending, then yes, then there should be a limit that's put on that. But in a situation a few weeks ago, we had a council member that tested positive for COVID. We have members that travel due to family reasons or whatever it may be, but still wanted to be able to do their job as a legislator for our community. And I believe that they should be allowed to attend remotely, just as I am tonight. However, my other concern that I have, so I'm pro that. I think it's wonderful, and I think we discussed this at the last retreat, and it was agreed upon that should be added in as an option, as long as it's not abused, of course. The other thing is, though, too, is that we have two video systems right now. We have this one, and then we have the YouTube. If we're going to continue providing these two services, I think we could go down to one. I don't think that we need two. We have a lot of issues with the YouTube situation. I've got it up here on my phone right now watching. We don't have a lot of engagement with that because there is no engagement. It literally is a video of our meetings and planning commission meetings where this system that we're using now, the one that I'm attending tonight, is recorded. We're doing double duty and creating more work for the clerk treasurer's office or for City Hall employees by having to keep track of two different items here. So I would encourage City Council to allow the attendance in video, but then also to eliminate the YouTube video, since we have an opportunity not only for legislators to engage this way, but also our community to engage this way. And I don't think that the YouTube is being used because there is no engagement. It's literally a video. No, I'll leave it at that. I will say too that I think that our process for selection of a vacancy is done quite well. I think that I think the process works, unless there's some deficiencies that council believes that they see.
Any other?
Are we talking about it?
I think it's time for discussion now.
1.8 came out when we made up the rules because we had people that were actually abusing them. They come to a meeting one time, they'll not come to the next meeting, and they just barely make it. They wouldn't make, they'll make their 3 meetings, stay in. And when we decided that they can be excused from a meeting if they're sick. They can come on the phone. At the time, we didn't use the way we do things now. I feel, how do you control that if you don't have the means to, if a person doesn't make 3 meetings to the council meeting in front of the people? I mean, you get elected to serve the people. So they should be here at the bench. I mean, you're gonna have somebody get sick, he gets excused. As long as he's excused, he's covered for. But if it becomes a problem, the only way to do that is to have something like we have, and that's the way I feel. Gotta have some accountability.
Just rereading 1.8 that you brought up here.
I think that's even more 1.3 in the abuse of the 3 meetings, because I think that was something that 1.3 is right here with the 3 meetings that.
If you miss 3 consecutive meetings.
If you miss 3, and it's like, okay, you come to 2, and then you miss 2, you show up, and then you miss 2 more. and then you show up, you're coming just to the bare minimum so that you know, how do you stop that abuse?
And Monty, do you remember how many meetings Councilmember Plaza missed?
It was a lot, and
It went on for quite a long time.
yeah.
And we were just excusing them. I don't know if they got paid for it, did they?
I think.
No, he didn't.
Well, I think the minimum is 150 a month.
Well, I mean,
Well, if you're excused from a meeting, you're not paid. If you're not participating in the meeting, you're not
But you
paid.
still get your base 150,
Everyone gets their base 150.
Yeah.
and that's, if you're missing 2 meetings, you're still getting your base, even if you're not coming.
Right.
Then how do you stop that abuse?
you don't, that's in the law. If you're a council member, you get paid $150 flat out, whether you meeting or not.
No, I think she's asking, how do you stop somebody
Oh.
coming
So
to one
besides
meeting, missing
Yeah.
two?
How do you?
You need something in addition to the 3 consecutive meetings, you need something, you will not miss more than so-and-so meetings before you are asked to step down for your position. Does that make sense?
Unexcused.
Yeah, well, if you have 3 unexcused, you're out anyway. If I remember municipal code.
Yeah, it's right here.
You can be voted out at that point, right?
Right now, I think council rules state, it's up on the screen there, council member shall forfeit his or her office by failing to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings without being excused.
Yeah.
But that, again, that's 3 consecutive.
Correct.
We're saying there needs to be something that says, okay, I've missed 7 meetings out of 20.
And it also doesn't include special meetings.
Right. I think there needs to be something outside of consecutive that says, hey, I've missed a third of our meetings.
But I think that's the way the law reads, is if you miss 3 meetings.
And it cites the RCW here in the code too.
It's 3, if you miss 3 meetings.
But if we're looking at this, we're discussing it so that we can decide as a council to implement something that we feel is fair as a council, right? That's what we're discussing, correct? So that this is not abused to where somebody's showing up just to the bare minimum to keep their seat.
Have we had that problem other than something here recent?
We did back then.
Back then.
Back then.
I think.
Came out with what we did.
With this right here, with the
This
rules?
here, and it's stopped it.
Okay.
And then the first time I've seen it again, now it's that.
It's a moot
Now,
point
she
again.
missed how many meetings and.
It is, but that's what brought it back up, so
Right.
how do we do it before it becomes a problem? Like,
I think we did it. When it became a problem, we voted not to excuse that person just recently. And there was a resignation that came shortly thereafter because we had drawn a line at that point. Now somebody's sick and has a longer term illness. Do we kick them off the council because of that? I mean, where do you draw the line? And I think we've addressed it, and I think it resolved itself. I don't think we need to change the rules.
And if I go on vacation, if you wanna kick me off, that's fine, but I'm gonna call in to be excused if I'm on vacation.
absolutely.
Mayor Finn?
So the reason that my understanding is when those rules were put into place, it was there was a lot of controversial votes that were being taken, and council members, historical knowledge before any of us were here, and Mr. Burke may have been there at the time, I don't know, but it was to prevent the, hey, I'm not coming in tonight because I don't want to provide my input and my vote tonight. I think, which is good. I think it's important to hold our legislators accountable when it comes, especially to those hard votes. I think that the main thing is, and I think there's 2 separate points here. Technology has evolved since those rules were written. I think that video attendance needs to be discussed. But I also think that council is right there, but there also needs to be some parameters put in place so it's not abused as a way of just attending meetings without coming up in person, without showing up in person.
Councilmember Holland, did you have a comment?
I did.
I'm turned this way.
You forgot.
I know.
He's got to throw a pencil at me.
No, I'm just happy to go.
So the reason we're having this conversation, and it's unfortunate that Miss Rowland chose to resign before we had this conversation, because she was the one asking to have this conversation. And from my perspective, the council meeting we had around Thanksgiving, I was positive for COVID. I stayed home. I was allowed to remote in. The following meeting, she had the flu. She was not allowed. And she was not excused. And that, I just took the time to read a TDN article that she was interviewed for today regarding her resignation. And her resignation comes from having some health issues that we were not accommodating of. And that could be construed as an ADA violation. I don't know if it works on elected officials, but she's still a resident of Woodland. And if we're inclusive to folks with challenges, and we've made everything accessible so that they can participate remotely here and they can watch from home, so that someone who is immune compromised, and we do that so that our residents can participate, then it has to be across the board. It has to be okay for council members and staff. I mean, we're either inclusive or we're not inclusive. So I think we all learned that in like kindergarten. Either everybody gets a cookie or nobody gets a cookie, but that's just kind of how that, I mean, that's the simplified explanation to it. And it's unfortunate, and I think, I don't know what the motivation, I know there's been a lot of snarky comments made, and there was a lot of stuff that she had to put up with before taking office. There was a lot of snarky comments from the people who came to participate in the meetings, making comments while she's sitting here that were inappropriate. And she didn't have to, she did not have to divulge her personal information because somebody wants to be snarky. And that's unacceptable, and that's part of the rules that we're gonna get to too, that people need to behave like grown adults when they come here. And this, I think, I mean, the way it's written, the way it's always been that I understand it to be is that we're all adults. If you're sick and you're gonna call in, just like where you work. If you call in sick to work, it's usually what is it? Usually you have a thing and then you gotta
consecutive days, and then you have to
bring a doctor's note, right. And I do recall prior hearing that Ms. Rowland would bring a doctor's note explaining her medical condition. And again, I mean, that's what would happen in the workplace, and so she was offering to do what would happen in a workplace, but then it wasn't okay here. And I don't think that's very fair, and I really didn't get to know her. This has been holding my purse for a while, and I understand a lot of that, and it's unfortunate. And I feel bad that might be an indicator for someone who has any kind of limitations, that they maybe won't run for an office because it's not inclusive to them and to their needs. It's just that it's unfortunate, and I don't think that Woodlanders are like that, and it's unfortunate that that's the impression that maybe she had, and I think we can do better, and I think just our behavior as council members to each other could be better. And so maybe that's what we do for this year. Maybe that's our New Year's resolution, is that we're better to each other because we're all in this for the same reason, to do what we can to make Woodland a better place. But I don't think that making it harder for somebody to keep their seat, like, that's kind of what it sounds like, is like, let's say I have, like for instance, I'm not even gonna use me, I'll use, so, council member, Browns, you've been sick a couple times, but bounce back, but you've been sick a couple times, and it's just that time of year, and we've all caught something. And you just need to stay home and get well. And to make it harder for you to come back, I mean, so maybe you feel good for 2 weeks and then 2 meetings and then now you've caught something else. So do we make it harder for you to keep your seat? No. That's kind of what I hear, is that we're trying to make it harder for people. We have elections for a reason. So if you don't like your neighbor, then somebody can run against. I guess but that's what it sounds like, is we want to make it harder, and it shouldn't have to be harder, you know? Anywho, that's just my point, because I did bring that up to, he's gone now, Mr. Mayor, that I just think, a while back, I just thought it was more inclusive, since, there he is. Because I was a big proponent of, I don't disagree with him with making it accessible with YouTube, but literally nobody watches it. So, like, I watch it still. I go back and watch our meetings. All the reporters don't show up here anymore. They just go off of the YouTube. And we legally don't have to have it. We're only legally required to take minutes of our meetings. None of this is required by state law. Just having minutes, that's it. We need to have the door open so people can come and take minutes. That's the law. The fact that we allow other things is just because we want to be more inclusive, I think.
I think you stated it very well. I think the way our system is set up, it's not set up the greatest for doing at home. I think we need to significantly improve our systems. I think there's some systems out there that have cameras that are on every council member, which would make a huge difference of a council member at home or a council member sitting up here. But I do think if we had a better system, there would be a more active engagement. But I think sitting at home, you don't get a good active engagement with our current setup. So I think it's a struggle the way it is. When it comes to Councilmember Rowland, I was not given a whole lot of information about why or when she was leaving or when she was not going to be here. I apologize. So it makes my vote more difficult when I'm going on unknowns of absences. But after hearing more and reading her letter today, I feel pretty bad about her leaving under the circumstances that she did. I think there could have been better conversation, and I agree. It would have been nice if she was here during this conversation. I know our budget's done, but it would be nice to look into a better setup versus doing go-to meetings. And the YouTube, I've looked at the YouTube. It's zoomed out. You can't see who's talking. It's horrible. We can get rid of it before the next meeting.
Get rid of it.
So.
I agree. System sucks.
It is better
When I
than
watch it.
the cell phone.
Huh? Oh, yeah, it's better than the cell phone we used to.
Now, I think the council's been pretty fair of people who have been missing, and there was no questions until it becomes noticeably excessive, and then at that point, questions start arising from other council members. And we have a council that votes on it, and if you're having a majority that say it's not going to continue, that's why we have a vote on it. If it's one that says no, well, I guess your vote doesn't matter at that point because the other people have overruled you. That's why we have a setup this way. And again, like Councilmember Holland stated, If the voters don't like it, they can vote people out also.
Has everybody gone through these rules? Actually read them? Just asking.
I read it. And as far as how we do a new person coming in to replace, I have no problem with the way we handled it the last time. I don't know about anybody else. I thought it was fair.
The only thing I would like to see different is a little bit more social media activity. It seems like that seems to be where people get their info. Whether it's
Oh, you mean
correct.
advertising?
Yeah, it
On
just
social
anything
media?
to be a little more engaged on social media. Our City of Woodland Facebook page, whatever avenue we have. I think it would be nice to be more active in that, to where we can get the correct information out there versus misinformation.
Who's taking care of a video right now? Can we get something better?
So the answer is yes. It's just how much do we want to invest? Our current IT provider, video is not their forte, so we'd have to go out and find a consultant who could come in, look at the room, and make some suggestions. So I'm hearing fairly wide consensus we need to do that.
Yes.
So, and
At least get some idea of what it would be and what the costs are.
We bought an owl.
Huh?
We bought the owl. It was $1,000, and for large conferences, that's what court conferences use, where there's 150 people in front. And it can move around to whoever's speaking. You can fix it or anything that you want. So then you're not just staring at Monty or the mayor or something like that. It moves around, and it has a great microphone. If you guys want to test it out, feel free. We can let you borrow it and see what you think.
Oh, what's the
It
price
just-
on it?
She
It was
said
$1,000
Oh,
for the whole thing.
$1,000.
So what I remember when council decided before, to go with that, they looked at KLTV, and that was like a gajillion dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And their sound is horrible.
Well, we don't
Like-
wanna put a TV show.
Like I watch their Longview's meetings, and you can't really hear it, and that was a small fortune. And then this, at one point, I think they looked at a GoPro. I actually just read the minutes to that meeting not too long ago. They looked at GoPro, they looked at YouTube, they looked at KLTV. Somehow this system, and I remember it being, I thought it was kind of comical how much that got quoted in, but it was about the same time that the security system at City Hall came in at like $6-7 grand, and this was piggybacked on it, if I remember correctly. But then the other confusion is we have 2 YouTube accounts because one was attached to a person that's no longer employed, and they won't give anybody the information. So you guys had to create a second one, same with all the Facebook and social media pages. So that's another one that's kind of confusing for people, is if you followed one thing, that doesn't get any activity anymore because nobody can log into it. So you had to go back and re-follow the different YouTube and the different, I don't know that a lot of people do that, but your system, I've watched your court meetings, that's a legit system. I could hear everybody and see everybody do what they needed to, way better than this.
Like I said, we can, if you guys wanna bring it over, just talk to Debbie at my office, and she can have you guys test it out and see what you think before purchasing it.
Yeah.
Should look for us, should put it there.
thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see some options. So,
Did, Kalama go with GoPros too, I believe?
They're on KLTV, I watch them on TV.
Did they finally switch over?
I don't know what their system was, I just
They were
watched
on
them on
GoPro.
my TV. Same with Longview.
So, Monty,
Yeah.
for looking at 1.8 for the telephonic, if we wanted to add something for video appearances for that, can we add it to that section? Or do we
Yeah,
have to have a whole
you-
nother?
You could, unless you want to keep the telephonic appearance as is, but council can amend that as they so choose.
And so, as the telephonic is read, so if we look at it, I know it begins with under limited circumstances, but then when you go down to, like, well, now I zoomed out too far. So as you go down to like E, it says that they can appear via telephone with all rules and procedures as if they are physically at the meeting. And then D is as if they participate and vote during the meeting as if they are physically at the meeting. So it looks like part of it acts like they could be here, like they're normally here, but then some acts as if there's limitations to it. So,
I think my interpretation was the limitations were the mayor could authorize this in the case of, due to a flood, fire, earthquake, or city or state emergency where there is a need for action by the governing body. So
so
those.
does it have to be emergency in order for?
Yeah, that was my interpretation of the language.
So we're looking at it as if we need to remove that if we want to allow.
You'd have to have some other language that would allow,
Us to be able,
yeah, to
if
go
we want
outside
to go
of,
that route.
to go outside of those limitations.
Okay,
I think the reason we were allowed is because the governor had claimed.
right, and he's removed that,
Right.
that state of emergency.
Right, so it fell under the emergency.
So right now, none of us can vote if we joined online. We'd just be a spectator like anybody
Correct.
from the community.
Unless there's a fire, flood, or
State of
city or
emergency.
state emergency.
Again,
Right.
okay, so if we wanted to do anything with 1.8, we need to change wording.
Right, so I guess what we're looking for from council is an indication of where you wanna go, what you wanna allow, what you don't wanna allow. Then we can craft some language, bring it back to you to critique, and see if it hits the mark, or if you wanna make changes to it.
Okay.
I-
And so, from the mayor, he was kind of saying, if I am understanding, Mayor, you were saying you liked us being able to join from home again, correct? And having that capability.
Yes, that
Okay.
as a, not an all the time.
Right, without abusing it.
Yeah.
You liked the ability for us to be able to vote and standing from home and joining the
Yes.
meeting. Okay. So how is council feeling on that aspect?
I think they should be here,
Um,
unless,
I
unless they're emergency.
I personally would like to see video conferencing added on here. But I would like there to be either mayor or presiding officer over the meeting can approve it, or council can approve it. And I think if we get into extenuating circumstances where there's a medical issue and the council member has discussed this with the mayor and doesn't feel like they need to discuss it with every council member, and the mayor wants to protect the city assets, he can say that it's approved according to mayor or presiding officer. If the mayor says, I'm not approving it, the council should be able to overrule him with a vote. So I think we have council to have a vote, or mayor can say yes or no, depending on what's happening, to have video or telephonic attendance. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I think that would keep some of the, because I didn't get a lot of info on Councilmember Rowland's position and what was going on. I had heard discussion, a little bit here, a little bit there, but I finally got more of the info on the letter that was sent out. But if she is having more engaging conversation with city staff or the mayor. Should this position be divulging it to everybody, or should he have the authority to say, as the presiding officer of this meeting, to say that they're approved? I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are, but that's what I would like to see as far as language.
So then that wouldn't be in the council rules. Because it's not a council rule unless.
It's
City council would have to give the mayor that authority, so it would have to be in the council rule.
and this would say 1.8A, the mayor or presiding officer may approve a council member's appearance at a council meeting via telephone. So it's already kind of in there.
But then you go back to, 2.8.
There is no
But due to the fire and flood, earthquakes, and would have to pull that out.
I don't think we have to. There's,
Because the whole entire
But
thing,
we're gonna allow anybody to do it.
It's based
it's
upon an
based upon
emergency.
an emergency, so we'd have to pull out
Right.
based on an emergency if we want any of this to
So if we had an
stand.
emergency, the mayor couldn't call to get everybody on the phone then?
Right, dude.
No,
If we
the
pull
mayor
that.
can get anybody on the phone at any point, but it's saying
Not
that
if
we
we pull it
cannot
out of emergency.
we cannot have anybody on council come via telephone or video unless it was a state of emergency.
As a voting member.
As a voting member. We'd have to remove the state of emergency fire flood if we want that to be allowed via.
Is that right?
Can we, Mr. Boyce,
Why
can
can't
we add a
add
one
two?
point eight A or B or something and add to it so that we can kind of bring this terminology into this century?
Yeah, we definitely can. Like I said, we were looking for guidance from city council as to what you want. We'll look at what other cities have, what MRSC has, as long as we know which direction council wants to go. And we can bring you some options.
Cause I think, I mean, considering current flu and everything else going around, I mean, that one night we were missing, what, three or,
And that's why you're.
yeah.
Barely had it.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think under the circumstances,
In that case, when you miss them, you only got 3 people here, the mayor can bring somebody in.
Well, you don't have quorum at that point. If
No, the mayor can.
but they wouldn't be allowed, he's saying that even if they called them, they can participate, but they can't be a voting because there's no emergency.
If you only got 3 council members here.
But a lack of a quorum isn't isn't a state of emergency.
if there's something that needs to be passed by this body, but that's pretty vague on.
Budget.
No, it is
Yeah.
city of the state of emergency when there's a need for action by the governing body. So in other words, if we had something we need to prove for some reason, then you can have a voter on the other end.
But I think right now, the way
In
it's.
case one doesn't show up.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, okay,
My
good.
apologies. I think the way it's written now, it says city or state emergency where there is a need for action by the governing body. So I think it's still linked to that emergency situation.
So we need to get rid of emergency if we want. Is that your understanding?
I mean, my thought is that, I mean, this is a common problem for all city councils, and I would agree with Pete, is let us take a look at MRSC and see what these options are that have been tested in other places and seem to work, and there may be several options that you could have, but I think we could probably look and do the research on what language is out there, and you can decide which you like. Because I think a lot of this is coming from before COVID, where there really wasn't the technology. The technology's increased. What the court has sounds interesting. That opens up elsewhere, so you can still feel that people that are trying in good faith to do their job are not excluded.
I agree.
So let Pete and I do some research, and we'll give you some options, and we'll maybe discuss it next meeting.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Is there any other ones that we need to look at?
Is there anybody has any questions on any more council rules?
I just,
Go
can I
ahead, Mr. Boyce.
clarify, I'm not hearing any changes on 1.3, the attendance excuse absence. I heard some conversation, but I didn't hear any consensus of any way, which way to go.
I think the issue there was someone saying you skip two, you make one, you get another two, and you could continue that indefinitely, which I think is a concern. That has not occurred while I was here. But you may want to take a look at that too.
I think when abuses started happening, it started raising questions up here from other council members, and I think we made an action and a change at that point. And that's where I sit back and say that if somebody has medical things, then I think there needs to be somebody up here that can make that decision without having to give out medical details to every single person up here. So I think that's why we have a mayor and somebody presiding over these meetings.
So maybe the solution here is to look at what some other cities are doing, bring you options of how other cities take care of attendance. We can do that for you too. It may stimulate some discussion.
Do we get into a legal issue with medical issues if somebody can't make these meetings by?
Well, I mean, you have certain privacy, which you might be able to resolve, in terms of leaving it to the mayor. But these are all good questions, and they have an impact on the character of the city council. But I do think, and maybe we'll strike out when we take a look. But I think you're raising typical things that you don't want someone to abuse it and not have it. But on the other hand, if a person is in good faith trying to do it, that it's reasonable for them to do it, maybe we can see what other cities are doing, and maybe we come up with our own language, but I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel tonight.
We can pass this at any time, Jim.
Yeah,
That would be good to.
I mean, it doesn't have to be today, tomorrow, or next week, or 3 weeks.
I think changes need to be made as far as technology increases, but yeah, we're not going to come to an immediate conclusion tonight. I think something needs to be wrote up, and then maybe another workshop to tweak it one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't think we should jump the gun and just change it right now. Just find a better solution.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments regarding council rules?
So is that it for the whole page, or so we can move on?
Unless there's
or-
anything else you want to bring up.
Well,
Anything else?
I actually, because there's 21 pages, so let me
Oh,
scroll.
that's why I was making sure we read it.
And we can keep it open at the next meeting too. If there's something council members don't see tonight, we can bring it up in the future.
It's certainly that important.
I think before we pass, we want to make sure we make the right choices.
So what I'm hearing is that we can just have another workshop at another meeting, and we'll just kind of knock off a couple pages at a time.
So I think the plan right now is to come back with some options for you on 1.3 and 1.8.
Okay.
And if at that time you want to bring up any other clause, or if we want a systematic approach to go through different items, we can surely do that too.
I don't think we've had any other problems with any of them. I don't know if the mayor has.
Well, I know she talked about the respect of just the way that people are addressing council and even that.
And I think the comments as people are talking that are made by other members up here need to stop.
The crosstalk.
The crosstalk needs to
It
stop.
wasn't only crosstalk. I've seen other things happen today, and maybe go on and on. In other words, council members should be approached with it by your name, same as the mayor should be approached us by name. So,
There's been a lot of back and forth with every member tonight, bouncing back and forth.
aligned with first
So,
name.
but when people are talking, I think that's what we're talking about. Not making comments. This is exactly what I'm talking about while I'm trying to talk. People talking over them. So I think that's the issue we're talking about right now.
It's a separate issue.
So,
So for me, I'm around loud equipment a lot, and I have a hard time. If a lot of people are chitter chattering, or if, like the mayor's saying something, and sometimes Carl will make a comment, I can't hear anything because but that's too many concerts and too much loud equipment that I'm around. So there's certain tones I don't hear. So like when there's things like that, it makes it harder for me to hear. I don't know about anybody else. I know I need to get probably hearing aids, but it just makes it harder for me because I'm down here, and so I'm used to reading people's lips to see what they're saying, so then I can kind of figure out what they're trying to say, and then without my glasses, you're blurry down there. So I can either look at this and look at you to make out what you're saying. And lean forward, JJ, please. Councilmember Burt, lean forward into your mic, because you're always back here and I really can't hear you.
The mumbling gets me too. I
I
can't.
can't hear my wife either.
I can't concentrate when there's mumbling going on all the time.
and I think giving people the opportunity to talk is very important, and not stepping over people.
Call the point of order.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I
Mr.
just
Boyce?
wanted to say that item 4.1 addresses how council members will be addressed, or anyone in the room. It says, the mayor shall be addressed as mayor, surname, your honor, or Mr. and Madam Mayor. Members of the council shall be addressed according to their preferences as council member, surname, counselor, surname, or Mr. and Mrs., Ms., surname. First name shall not be used in the council chambers. So that, that could be more of an enforcement issue. The rule is there.
And I don't do these meetings every day, so I'm not great at it.
Right.
The mayor definitely does it a lot better.
And
So I apologize. I do this maybe 3 times a year.
And I thought there was some language somewhere in here, I just couldn't find it right off, where, you have to go through the chair to be recognized. I'll see if that's there. If that's not there, that could help with the crosstalk.
Okay? So leave this on for next meeting to continue discussion for a workshop. Mayor, did you have anything you wanted to say before we move on from this workshop? And I don't know if I officially announced we're in workshop for council rules at the beginning of this.
We are.
I apologize. So we'll move on to second workshop, which is public participation plan for periodic update of comprehensive plan. I don't know if do we have a presentation on it? Okay.
Thank you very much. As you know, that we have been going through some efforts to engage the county in planning discussions. And as a result of actions that you took at last couple meetings, we withdrew the ordinances for the agriculture and the urban growth boundary expansion. And part of that was the mayor had asked me to prepare applications for county comp update and some other issues that we were looking to tackle. Since we have withdrawn that, we are trying to regroup and figure out what we were going to do. The mayor asked me to prepare a participation plan and a calendar for trying to get a comprehensive plan update done. And that's what you have in your packet tonight. It's a draft that was prepared at the mayor's request. And part of what we were wrestling with in this discussion, and that is part of the county's concern, is that we had inadequate planning in place. And we didn't necessarily want to go through the massive effort that we did in 2018 to end up in a position where we didn't get any positive results out of it. But at the same time, we recognize that additional work needs to be done. A large portion of that was done in 2018. I just need to do a few updates. For example, the amount of land that has been consumed for commercial and industrial has gone up, but we haven't essentially had any residential development at that time, or in the time since 2018. So we won't necessarily have to talk much about urban growth expansion or updates to our growth projections, because we essentially haven't had any growth since we did that. And so we don't necessarily want to do a massive amount of work without, or do it again. And we also have to bear in mind that under the Growth Management Act, we're required to have periodic updates. Clark County's periodic update has to be adopted by June of 2025, and Cowlitz County's update has to be done by June of 2026. So really, to be adopted in June, you have to do the work the year before, which means Clark County will probably do theirs in 2024, and then adoption in 2025. Cowlitz County will be doing theirs in 2025 with adoption in 2026. But again, we don't necessarily want to go through an effort in 2016, 2018, 2022, and then go back and do it in 2025, 2026. So what we're looking at here is a plan that would allow us to try and update our comprehensive plan without doing a complete rewrite. So we're going to try and compartmentalize it, seek public input, and see what the results of that are. Hopefully that will provide us with enough analysis that Cowlitz County would feel comfortable with the idea of entertaining a comprehensive plan or update that would include a urban growth area expansion. But if they're not, then ultimately we may have to wait until 2026 before they have their comprehensive plan update, at which point we would be able to again revisit our comprehensive plan, potentially look at urban growth expansion 2026. So that essentially puts us in a holding pattern for several more years. But that's kind of why the mayor asked me to do this and the issues that we're trying to wrestle with. You'll see in the public participation plan that it focuses a lot on having information available on our website, holding open houses, and using utility mailers whenever we can. We're going to be doing our best to solicit as much public input and public comment as we can. And I include a note in there letting anyone who participates in that process know that their comments will be part of the public record and it is subject to disclosure. So if you submit an email, your email theoretically becomes part of that record, as well as your address, your phone number. If it's in your email and you submit it to the public record, just be aware that that will be disclosed. And then last, there's a planning commission is really going to be kind of the shepherd of that through the review process, and they will have open houses, and then of course it'll come to you for, if you're interested, workshops and open houses. The schedule for that, the timeline, is laid out in section 4, and I would like to point out that it was pointed out to me, since it's been available on the website, that the introduction to the Planning Commission and the introduction of the public participation process is February 16th, not February 6th, and January 3rd. So some of those dates are incorrect, and the rest of them are just estimates for this draft and getting it forward. And I did note that adding the Dyking District, the Port, and the school district will be added to that list of stakeholders. And that it's not a complete list. We'll continue to add to that as parties come forward. So unless you have an objection, I will add them tomorrow. And that's essentially it. Do you have any questions or concerns?
I would like to see more social media input on there. It's probably a broken record, but again, seems to be where people get their info. So I would like to see something on there, at the very least, to the City of Woodland Facebook page to have a better updates on there.
We don't actually have like a social media person, do we? Or do we have a clerk that takes on that role?
No. Ms. Hogan provides a lot of that service for us.
Nice.
Although it's not her main role, it's one of many roles.
And then you get busy and you don't have time. Yeah.
Not necessarily true. We're actually having an issue with Facebook at the moment. And I'm actually trying to work with the people at Facebook to get it fixed. And they're on their own time, unfortunately. When we switched to a new Facebook page, I was actively posting public hearings, city council meetings, Christmas tree recycle pickup, community events, stuff like that. And then they decided, oh, no, this goes against our rules. So I've been arguing with them back and forth. And what happened was our Facebook page went through an algorithm, and the algorithm pulls pages randomly. And so they have to manually unpull it, and I'm still waiting for a response.
You rebel.
And I check in with them weekly, so it's not something I ignore. I check in with them weekly.
You should post that you're having trouble.
If it would let me post that I'm having trouble.
That was a joke. I apologize.
Otherwise, we would definitely use Facebook.
Okay.
I do realize, and we do get comments from citizens saying post that, but that's where we currently are.
How on Instagram?
Yeah. Welcome to the struggles of social media.
Literally, most of my news comes from TikTok. Within seconds of things happening, it comes up on my news page. I don't know why. I don't even, but that's the way of the world now.
I guess how many social media outlets should we actually explore to post on? It's endless. So where do you stop? Where do you begin? Where do you stop? I don't know.
One thing you'll want to keep in mind is I've also assist with public records requests. Is keeping record and archiving them becomes a struggle and a challenge when it comes to technology and stuff like that. So we're more than happy to look into that, but just keep that in mind. It does create, yes, it's easy to post something, but it creates a lot of work on the back end, making sure we archive appropriately to the standards that we're required to do. So right now we only have Twitter and Facebook that I'm aware of as far as City Hall and Public Works uses.
Yeah, I know when I post something regarding council, I personally take a screenshot and email it to me, to the city email, to make sure there's a public records track of it.
So does it get deleted? Because you can delete it.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. That's smart.
So,
Because it also requires us to invest in more software programs that capture activity on there. So then you're spending even more and more money. It's not just getting the free service of social media. You're getting into, well, now we need to find a software program that will capture everything. So if stuff gets deleted or removed, we still have a record of it.
yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Director Goddard? No? Mayor, do you have anything to add? I think we can close out the workshop. And then the chair can take a motion to end the meeting.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting ended at 8:29. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
This